All right, would you welcome up our speaker today, Emily? Give her a big hand.
We're talking about. This is real stuff and the things that we're working out. So I think it's been really good that we've been talking about it. And I have the privilege to talk about something that I think often gets a bit of a bad rap. It kind of has a negative connotation to it. It's kind of looked down upon. And so I'm excited to talk about it, and that is singleness. Woo! Yeah! But really God's intention for singleness, that there is a point, that there is a purpose, and I'm excited to talk about it. And you may be thinking, this is a relationship series, so like, why are we talking about singleness? Like, I'm trying to be in a relationship. Like, I'm trying to work on my relationships. Like, I don't want that. That's a no for me. But really, I want to start by challenging us that singleness really is just the foundation of all of our relationships. When we stand before Jesus, we won't stand next to our spouse or next to our family. We stand as a single individual. What did you do with Jesus? What was your relationship with Jesus? And so I think that it's important that we cover this. And I actually would go as far to say that most marital or relational issues are actually singleness issues. That the individual has an issue with God. That they're the individuals in the relationship. So married people, don't check out, because this is for you too. And whether you've realized it or not, our church body as a whole, on average, our church body is made up of about 40 to 50% singles. Probably didn't know that, did you? Yeah. And I'm not including Keiki, okay? I'm including those of us who are sitting in this room right now. And on a national level, the church in the United States, 67% is single. But you probably wouldn't notice that by how much we talk about just marriage and family. We leave out this whole people group that make up majority of the church as a whole. And so that's what we're gonna do this morning. We're gonna address them. Let's hear it, yeah! So we're gonna open up to 1 Corinthians 7. Those of you who know this passage probably knew I was gonna go here, because Paul went there. So in this passage, I'll give you some context. He is speaking to the church in Corinth. This is the middle of his first letter to them, and they had written him a bunch of questions. And really, because Corinth was like in this, like, they were in the epicenter of like sexual temptation. There was all sorts of stuff going on around them. And so they're asking, like, what do we do about the married people? What do we do about the widows? What do we do about singleness? What do we do about sex? What do we do about all this stuff? And so they're looking to him for answers. And so this is really where he's picking up on. And the first little chunk of that chapter, he's talking to married people, like the structure of yielding your body to one another, that there's a structure within marriage to do that. But at the end, he says this like little tagline, and I love it. It's in verse 7. He says, I wish all of you were as I am, but each of you has your own gift from God. One has this gift, another has that. And in the Message version, it says, sometimes I wish everyone were single like me. A simpler life in many ways. But celibacy is not for everyone, any more than marriage is. God gives the gift of the single life to some and the gift of the married life to others. And so the first framework I want to lay down as we get started is that both singleness and marriage are a gift from God. They both are. And I understand that some gifts are a little easier to receive than others. But that what is best is that we receive the gift that God gave us, that it's unique, that it's specific, that it has a purpose. It's not to be cruel. There's an intention behind it. And that, and I also get that sometimes it's really hard to receive a season as a gift if we don't believe that the giver is good. If we don't believe that the one that's giving it to us actually has our best intentions in mind, if we have something wrong there. And Paul will address this later in the chapter, but he says that basically whatever season you're in, be there. You don't move until God moves. The best thing for you is to be there. And so with that both are a gift, and that one is not necessarily better than the other, but what's best is that we receive what God gives us, but that we be people who contend for each other, that for what's best for them, what God's best is. And so this is a subject that I'm very passionate about. I'm going to be talking about a mile a minute, and I am so sorry, but I am really trying to cram as much as I can. But I just feel like this is something like I could go on for hours, because I really feel like this is something we miss in the church a lot of times, and we kind of just gloss over it. And for me, this is more than just an opportunity to teach or preach on a Sunday morning. I'm really inviting you guys into my story, God's story through my life. And I feel like Jesus is asking me to be vulnerable and be real with you guys. So here you go. But I honestly I'm excited to do it. It's my joy to do it, because this is the area of my life that I have witnessed the deliverance of the Lord. Amen. The victory, the freedom, the healing on this side of heaven. And I'm excited to talk about it, even though it's vulnerable. I don't really care. I'm excited to tell what Jesus has done. So, and as I was praying this morning, I feel like I was asking the Lord, I'm like, what's like your point? Like, what do you want? You know, I can talk for hours about this. Like, what do you actually want me to give them? And I really felt like he was like, will you give the hopeless hope? And will you give the lonely validation and comfort? And will you give purpose to those who are in waiting, that they're in contending seasons? Wow, I didn't know I'd start crying this fast. Like, I'm a crier, but I was really hoping I'd hold it together. Oh, get it together, woman. Okay, here we go. So, Jesus. I'm not ashamed. Thank you, unashamed. I'm unashamed that I'm a crier. It's hard to just talk through it. So you're like, come on, Lord. But yeah, so what gives me credibility to speak on this? Hello. I'm Emily. I'm about a month away from my 30th birthday, and I am single. And if you would have told me when I was in my early teens and 20s that I would be here, man, oh wow, it would be, yeah. So I had been in relationships in like my teens and early 20s, but I have not been married. I've been in, I didn't even sit down and figure out how many, but I have been in so many weddings, you guys. Like my 20s, I think every single summer I've been in like 2 or 3 weddings. Like, so do the math. I've spent most of my 20s in weddings, and I love it. I love weddings. They're so fun, but 27 Dresses, that movie is a little too close to home for me. So it's a little too close to home. And I mean, I feel like whenever we talk about this, we're always like, oh, the single ladies. But that song to me is a little triggering, because for me, it like represents this, every wedding, all the single ladies comes on and they're like, oh my gosh, it's the bouquet toss. Emily, get out there. And I'm like, you guys, I can only beat 13-year-olds at the bouquet toss so many times before it really starts to take a toll on who I am. But if you're wondering, it's been 9. And the athleticism is impressive, but the tradition doesn't actually work. So there's that. I caught it 9 times. Yeah, 9. So, I mean, I tried a little too hard. I can't not. I'm competitive. It's okay. Anyways. But yeah, all laughs aside, if you would have told me in my early 20s and my teens that I would be entering into my 30s as a single woman, I would have been devastated. I would have been completely crushed. And honestly, I would have been furious at the Lord. At that point in my life, I was so desperate. And unintentionally, when I got saved in January. It'll be 15 years ago. So I've spent half my life pretty much with Jesus and half my life without. It's pretty cool. But I spent well, after I got saved, I feel like there was like kind of this like second gospel that tried to like sneak its way in. It was a false gospel, but it just like tried to like sneak its way in. And that was really like, congratulations, like now you know Jesus, and as a godly woman, you get a husband. Like it was like this consolation prize of like living the Christian life. And I was like, okay, when's he gonna come? Like, this is amazing, I love this for me. But really, it just like, it bred this obsession. In my early walk with the Lord, I was obsessed with who my husband was going to be, whether or not I was going to get married, and it really became this idol that I was worshiping. And the truth is that I didn't want to swallow was that marriage actually isn't guaranteed for everybody. I thought marriage was like this ultimate goal, this prize that like only the ones who had arrived would get. That you had to like make it to this certain place in maturity, that was your consolation prize, that was what life was all about. And I believed this at my core. Like I can't tell you the amounts of tears I have cried and lonely nights that I've spent just like, why, Lord? Like I don't get it. I don't understand your timeline. I don't get it. What's wrong with me? Why is no one choosing me? Why does no one want me? Because really, I was looking for men to fill a hole that God was really always supposed to fill. And the truth is that I so deeply needed to know that I was chosen, that I was seen, that I was loved, and I didn't yet know I didn't know the depth of his love for me yet. And honestly, my mentality was kind of like that. A husband, from what they told me, a husband is owed to me, so where is he? And you must be withholding. I must have done something wrong. I must have gone too far. I messed up too bad. Why else would this not be going the way that everyone said that it would go? And I spent years like this, not just months. My single season wasn't just like, oh my gosh, I've been single for like 3 months and it's been so good. No, been single for like a decade. And some others are longer, but I'm like, this wasn't just like a few months out of my life. Like this was years of my life that I spent like this, honestly, emotionally and mentally tortured by this obsession, and really self-pity. I was just sulking in self-pity and bitterness and resentment that it wasn't going the way that I thought it would. But, the big but, there was a summer where I think I don't even know how many weddings I was in at this point. I think I was into that summer. I was attending a bunch. It was just like the full heat of weddings in my like mid-20s. And I remember I was sitting there getting ready. I was the maid of honor in this wedding, and so I'm like looking at my friend, like she's so beautiful, like I'm so happy for her, and I was so excited. And I'm looking at all my friends getting ready, and I'm like, this is so cool. I'm like curling my hair, like I love this. This is so awesome. And then these like emotions and thoughts start to creep in. Because I really was so excited for my friend, but the temptation to like feel something else was creeping in, and I was like, no, not now. Let's not do this here. Can we not do this here, Lord? And I just felt like I just in that moment, in the quietness of me getting ready, I was like, Lord, why? I don't understand your timeline. I don't understand why things aren't going the way that I thought that they would go. This is not what we had planned. Like, this is not it. And I just felt like this quiet, like just went over my whole body. And all I could hear were these 3 words reverberating through my entire self. And it was him asking me, am I enough? Am I enough? And the truth is that immediately I knew the answer, I knew the right answer, and I knew my answer. But it took me weeks to finally get to the place where I could answer that honestly, that I could say it out loud. Because the truth was, no, you're not enough for me. But I desperately need you to be. Because I can't keep living like this. This self-pity and broken and like that bitterness, it's sucking the life out of me. I can't keep going on like this. I so desperately need you to help me love you more than I need to be loved. And yes, we know the right answer. We know Jesus is enough. Like I know that right answer, but I had to be honest with myself. Did I actually believe that? I could know a truth and not actually believe it. And I'm confident that I'm not the only one in the room who has places in their life where they're still trying to control and manipulate and trying to make it happen for themselves, because if you're honest, Jesus isn't enough. And we have to get to a place where he is, because the truth is that even if I got the thing, even if I got married, if he wasn't enough here, he wouldn't be enough there. It wasn't marriage that was gonna fix it. It wasn't. And he sent me into this like really reflective season where all this stuff was coming up, and I was like, what is happening? But it was so good, because he was just proving to me that if he wasn't enough for me here, if the relationship came, if the kids came, the house, the job, whatever it is, it was never going to be enough if Jesus wasn't enough for me. It would never satisfy. It would never taste the way that I wanted it to. It wouldn't, because the truth is, I could go out and get married today, you guys. That's not the issue. I could be married. The issue is that I'm holding out for God's best. And so that is what we're contending for. And honestly, getting there took so much time. I mean, the healing took time. There was a lot of grieving, because really, when he was asking me that, am I enough? I knew what he was coming for. He was coming for the Isaac in my life. The thing that I wanted so badly, and I'm sitting here, I laying him on the altar and letting it die. He was asking for all of me. But through that season, and as you can imagine, being in my early 20s, it was messy. I'm one of the last, I think I'm the last person in my friend group that is single, and I have been on all the awkward setups, and I have done all of the things, and it has been layered and messy and heartbreaking, and yet Jesus has so profoundly shown me and taught me that he withholds no good thing from me. And if I spend a life chasing after him, I don't need to go make something happen for myself. I will be running after him, and his best I will find running alongside me. That is how it's gonna go. I'm not gonna miss it. He's not withholding it from me because I don't deserve it. It's because the time's not right. Or it's not for me. Because it might not be the best thing for me. And after years of Jesus, and me creating this relationship and him really wooing me, he raised my standards. Most people, the longer you're single, the lower those standards get. You're you went to church once? Oh, I'll take you. Yeah. I'll take that, that's good. Yeah. And you believe there's a God? Okay, cool. Yeah. But the truth is that he was showing me, I was doing what Bam was talking about last week. I was dating Jesus, and he was showing me what it means to be pursued by a godly man. He was showing me what it meant, and he was raising that standard that now my picture of what marriage is supposed to be or what it could be is so different. And it's what he designed. And in me, he forged this decision, this resolve that I would not get married unless it was his best thing for me. And I wouldn't get married unless it actually helped me run after him harder. If it distracted me in any way, I don't want it. That's not what I want here. Me and Jesus are good. We're doing good. We are a fully functioning car, and we are running. But if it was a better situation than what we have going on here, then okay. But ultimately, I wasn't gonna miss it, and all I needed to do is to continue to keep my eyes on him, and he would make it happen if that's what his best was for me. But really, I couldn't get to this place until this fear of being alone died. And honestly, that fear is coming from a very real and valid place, because we weren't actually made to be alone. And so it's valid. The place that it's coming from is valid, but that I was acting out of it, that was not good. That's not what Jesus has for me. And sadly, I think that if we're honest, this is a big reason of why people get married. They're just terrified of being alone. And so I feel like Jesus was really teaching me that, and he really killed that thing in my life. And ultimately, because I knew that if I was still a slave to this fear of being alone, I'd never be able to make a wise judgment. I would always be responding out of this. So whoever it was that I choose, there'd always be this thing in the back of my head, like, am I doing this because I'm afraid to be alone, or do I actually think that you're who I'm supposed to be with? Like, there's just this lingering thing. But because of what Jesus has done, because of his work through my life, because I let him have the pen and write the story, I can confidently stand here and tell you I am not afraid of being alone. Like, that's Jesus's work in me. Because if 20-year-old me heard me saying those words right now, she'd be like, nuh-uh. Like, that is, what are you talking about? He's not going to give you a husband then. Like, it would just be this, like, whole thing. But I am so thankful. Like, I feel like that is the deliverance of the Lord that I received, that freedom from that fear of being alone. And I feel like it also, like, if that is what the Lord has for me in the future, if it is marriage, then ultimately that fear being dead will immediately transfer into my marriage, because my husband, he won't be carrying the weight of my fear. He won't be under the pressure of my control or manipulation, because I'm afraid of being alone. I'm afraid. And he will rightly be my partner and not my God. So I honestly, you guys, I never thought this was going to be my story. I didn't think that this was how it was going to go. I did not know that this was going to be my story. I thought I'd be on my second or third kid by now. Like, I did not think that this is how it was going to go. But man, there are no words that I could communicate how thankful I am that I did not grab the pen out of his hand, because I would not trade this for anything. The intimacy, the dependency, the relationship that I have with him, it outweighs anything I could ever have with a significant other. And no one could take that away from me. And so I wouldn't trade it. It's an adventure for me to, like, allow God to write the story. I'm like, what are we doing? Well, we're moving to Hawaii. Okay, here we go. Like, it's great. And I think that something the enemy of our souls often does to rob and steal and kill and destroy from us is that he gets us to maximize and amplify the benefits of a season we're not in. Like, we look at it through the best filter, and then we look at our season through all the limitations and challenges. And it's been his MO since the very beginning to get us to question the goodness of God in our life. That, did God really say? Is his timing really perfect? Questioning God's intention towards us. And like, a side note, I really think that this is why when the Lord introduced himself to his people, he introduced himself as I am. He is the present tense God. He is right here in this moment, in this season, whatever it is that he's called you to, he is right here in this. And I feel like Paul in this passage, in this, like, chapter, he is addressing a lot of these things, and he says that ultimately, it's good to stay single. It's good to stay where you are. In verse 8, he says, now to the unmarried and the widows, I say, it's good for them to stay unmarried as I do. But if they cannot control themselves, they should marry, for it's better to marry than to burn with passion. So why is singleness good? What does singleness have to offer that makes it a good gift from God? In verse 32, Paul says, I would like you to be free from concern. And an unmarried man is concerned about the Lord's affairs, how he can please the Lord. But a married man is concerned about the affairs of this world, how he can please his wife. And his interests are divided. An unmarried woman or virgin is concerned about the Lord's affairs. Her aim is to be devoted to the Lord in both body and spirit. But a married woman is concerned about the affairs of this world, how she can please her husband. I am saying this for you for your own good, not to restrict you, but that you may live in a right way, in undivided devotion to the Lord. He doesn't do this to restrict us. He doesn't do this to be cruel. He does it to actually give us freedom, to be able to have a season of undivided, unbridled, unhindered devotion to him. The point of marriage is the same point. It's still devotion to Jesus. Singles, we just don't have as many distractions. Like, it's like way easier. Like, all you married people are way too distracted about things, you know what I'm saying? But it's still the point. Devotion to Christ is still the point of both of them. He just says it's easier, it's better that you stay single, because, man, you can just spend all your time with Jesus. It's amazing. But I love that word that he says, the right way or the appropriate way. And in the Greek, it says that it fits the setting and the context of the time. It's appropriate for the time that it's placed in. And what is the time? Paul says in verse 29, he says, what I mean, brothers and sisters, is that time is short. And then again in 31, he says, for this world in its present form is passing away. Time is short. There's a sense of urgency. So what's the main storyline of your life? What's the main purpose? Is it your relationship status, or is it the status of your relationship with Jesus? And even when I think about like how much, like relationships are so important. That's why we're covering it. Like God is the God of relationships. Don't hear me not say that. That's why we're covering this stuff. Like this is important. But let's keep the main thing the main thing. This thing talks about relationships probably about that much. What's the rest of this about? Jesus. The point is Jesus. And do I obsess? Because that's what I was doing in my early 20s. I was obsessed with all of this. All of this affected this. And that it's really, Jesus is the point. And ultimately our healthy relationships, our healthy singleness that then fuels into our healthy relationships, that is showing the world who is in pain what it means like to be brothers and sisters in Christ. That they'll recognize you as my disciples by the way that you love one another, the way we're in relationship. But keeping the main thing, that it's urgent that we live a life devoted to Jesus. There's a sense of urgency there. And that the time, I felt like I kept hearing the Lord say this, like the time on the clock affects how you play the game. The time on the clock should affect how you play the game. Time is short. So I should live with a sense of urgency, trusting Jesus with whatever season it is that I'm in, but running after him no matter what, because he's still the point. And marriage is beautiful. It's a beautiful tool. God designed it. We're going to talk more about it. It's amazing. And not that I know from experience, but I have been told. But it's beautiful. And singleness, ultimately marriage is beautiful, but it's a tool. And singleness is beautiful, and it's a tool. The whole point is that we would increase devotion to him. And for the singles, there's extra time to be concerned with the Lord's affairs. In the Message translation in those verses, he says, I want you to live as free of complications as possible. When you're unmarried, you're free to concentrate on simply pleasing the master. Marriage involves you in all the nuts and bolts of domestic life and in wanting to please your spouse, leading to so many more demands on your attention. The time and the energy that married people spend on caring for and nurturing for each other, the unmarried can spend in becoming whole and holy instruments of God. I'm trying to be helpful and make it easy as possible for you, not make things harder. All I want is for you to be able to develop a way of life in which you can spend plenty of time together with the master without a lot of distractions. That was Paul's heart for them. That it's still the point of both, but that singleness does provide a freedom to focus. And I really feel like that's what the Lord has had me do, even in my experience, that he asked me to leverage my singleness for his glory. To leverage that time that I have for him, for his purposes, to be concerned about his affairs. And ultimately, that is where I find true satisfaction and fulfillment. There's nothing like it. And I felt like in that season when the Lord was challenging me in that, he said, Emily, your life does not start when you're married. And your life does not start when you have kids. Your life has actually already started, and you can either continue to just exist in it, or you can actually live it. God wants to remove the pause button from your life. Waiting and contending for something doesn't mean that we just sit idly by, twiddling my thumbs, like, when's he gonna come? There's things to do. There's things to be done. There's things to do while we're waiting, to be concerned with his affairs. And I call this season of my life that I'm in right now is that I am content. I am all here. I am leveraging my singleness for Jesus. I'm all in. But I am contending for the things that I still hope for. And I can do both. Contentment is less of this place that I just arrive to. I think we're always I've arriven at contentment. I am here I am. And I feel like God's taught me that it's less of this place that I arrive at, and it's more of this tension that I'm managing. There are still hard days, in all and complete vulnerability, Mother's Day will probably always be a hard day for me. I want kids. But that can't completely rob me of my contentment, and it can't make me sour for the things that I'm still contending for. I cannot go back to bitterness and self-pity. She was ugly. She was definitely not gonna be seen. But God wants you to remove the pause button from your life. And I love this quote. I have no idea who said it, but I love this quote. Let not your longings slay your appetite for living. And when I was in my early 20s, that really is what I was doing. I was so longing after these things that I was letting it slay my appetite for actually being alive and living a full life. And I feel like I would have missed out. I'm so glad Jesus intervened when he did, because I would have missed out on the relationships that were right in front of me in that season. The friendships that I developed with my time, that I was able to be available. I mean, I cannot, like, my friends, like, especially like during those years, like, those are not just friends to me. Those are my actual family. When I go back to the mainland to visit family, that's who I'm visiting. Jesus forged this, because I'm still made for relationship. I still need to be in relationship with people. But wherever you are, be all there. Leverage whatever the season is for Jesus. And it's okay to have the hard days, because ultimately on those hard days, like, I take care of myself. I know it's probably good that you're not alone today, Emily. Go and be with people. Go let them in. Take time with Jesus, actually, but ultimately it's because I can process that healthfully, because Jesus and I have developed this relationship. It's actually coming from a place. It's not still the same constant struggle that it is. There has been freedom. There is deliverance. And so I'm not just like, there are hard days, but I'm still free. And I own that. So to the singles, where we are, would you describe your season this way? Are you spending your extra time and freedom on becoming whole and holy instruments of God? Are you allowing it to be filled with distractions? Are you just filling your singleness with a bunch of recreational dating, and it's kind of just like, whatever, I'm single, I get to do what I want, wherever? Or is there an actual intention behind it? Because you may not always have this kind of freedom. For most, you'll probably get married eventually. And so this season will come to an end. And so are you living a way that's appropriate for the context that you find yourself in? Are you concerned with the matters of the Lord? Because if not, your season of singleness is going to be very frustrating. And you're going to just be constantly like, what? Like, like, it's just a monster. And this is what has helped me. I feel like the Lord, I was so focused on all the no's that were being said to me that I feel like I started to have to keep asking myself, and the Lord would ask me, what are the yeses you get to say, though? Because I get to say different yeses than all y'all. I am available. So Lord, what do you want me to do with my time? Like, what are the yeses that you want me to say in this time? And one of the many beautiful examples of this in my 20s and in the last 10 years was that when I was on the mainland, I had the opportunity to lead a group through a ministry called Young Life. And this is really an evangelistic youth movement, and they really reach kids who have never been to church. Like, it's really like, I mean, they're dropping F-bombs while we're praying, folks. Like, it's raw, it's real. And so I really adopted this group of girls. They were juniors and seniors, and they came to my house every single week. My apartment was like their second home. When they drank too much at a party, I was the phone call they made. They trusted me. They knew I was available. They knew I was able to answer that late night phone call when they were heartbroken. I was there. I was like their mother hen, and it was like the most fulfilling thing in my life. And the coolest thing was to watch how God used just my one little yes, I'll be available to them, and how he used that to change their forever. Those girls love Jesus now. And I mean, some of them are struggling, but we're in it. but still, their eternity changed just because I said, yes, you can use me. I got time. Use me. And that was just one of the many things that he did. just because I offered myself. And it looks like this. Devotion is like this combination of words that mean like good and beside, that I'm like right there beside the Lord, like, what can I get you? What do you need? What can I do for you? Like, I'm just like so, like a waiter. Like, I'm just like really attentive, but I'm attentive and I'm ready to be sent. He said, move to Hawaii, and I was gone in 3 weeks. I got no strings. I can go wherever you want me to go, Lord. Like, wherever you want me to go, I can do it. And I just love that type of freedom. Like, is that how we're using our singleness? Are we concerned with his affairs? Are we dating him and allowing him to woo us and romance us so that we know what it means to be loved and romanced, and that we use that for his glory? And I feel like there's a lot in the room who are like, okay, but still, like, that's cool. Like, I love singleness. It's great. Woo. But I still want to be married. What do I do with that very real struggle that's still really there? And I just want you to know that God is not callous about that. It's a good desire. It's a good thing. And so if he has you in a season of singleness, that's a good thing. He's not trying to be cruel. He's not trying to punish you. It's for your good. It is a good, he's entrusted you with a good gift. And I want to say this too, that if you are single, you got to stop looking at yourself like you're less than. You are not less than. You are an equal member of this body. You are valuable, you are seen, and even your singleness has a beautiful purpose. And your relationship status has absolutely nothing to do with your worth. You're not worth more because you're married, and you're not worth less because you're single. They're not even the same thing. That's not the thing. That's not the scale. Jesus said you're worth it. And if you'll date him, he'll prove to you that you're worth it. And I feel like we gotta shift our focus to make marriage not necessarily like the main focus of our Christian life, that Jesus is the main focus. And if we just sit around like waiting to be married, then like if that's the whole point, like if just sitting around waiting to be married is the point, then Jesus and Paul failed. And I don't think any of us are willing to say that, because that's not the point. They modeled for us what it means to leverage your season for the glory of God, whatever that is. And we find our greatest joy and purpose through that. And he'll give you everything that you need to do it. Like, I think I was always looking at that future season, like, oh my gosh, like on the front end, I'm like, I can't do that. Well, I didn't have the grace on me yet. God put grace on me in that season. I was just terrified by just the facts. Like, no, that's not for me. But while I was in it, he was carrying me. He was covering me. He provided everything that I needed. I wasn't without. And he still is. But the intention behind all of it, and the intention behind singleness, is to fall back in love with your first love. And he'll show you that you're worth it. The point will always be to get to know him so we can make him known. And I want to close with this. That's something that I love very, very, very much, is that the first century church was led by married Peter and single Paul. That it's all of us together. It's all walks of life. It is all relationship statuses. It's all of us together. We are one family. We are one body of many parts. We have a gift to offer one another. And whether you're married or eventually you will get married, you were made for relationships. And so single people, we got to be intentional about being in relationship with people. We got to allow ourselves to be known, to be held accountable, because we don't have a built-in partner that's right there looking at us and, telling us what's all wrong with us. I have to go tell people, hey, this is what's wrong with me. Will you look at me? Like, I have to let people know me. And church, can we be more intentional about including 40 to 50% of our body? That some people, the truth is that some people today will go home and they're not going home to a family. They're going home to sit in their house by themselves. And the enemy is a creep. And he is cruel. And those lonely moments, like, we all feel loneliness. I'm confident that there are people who feel very lonely in their marriage, and we'll address that. But the loneliness that comes when the enemy attacks us in those moments, and then you're actually physically alone, it is warfare. And it takes a lot. And so we got to be intentional about checking in, including our friends who don't have somebody who's right there living with them. And can we shift our language to include everybody, to validate and affirm the season that each of us are in right now? That it's not just like, oh, you'll get married one day, don't worry, God has someone for you. Well-intentioned, I'm aware. But what if God didn't have somebody for them, and their ultimate goal was that they got to a place where Jesus really was just enough for them? We don't want to cause more harm. We want to be encouraging. Whatever it is right now, let's not worry about that. Let's worry about what God's doing right now in your life. He has a good plan for you, and it's a good gift. Our single friends are taking hits from all sides, I will tell you.
That's right.
We live in a couple's world. Everything, movies, music, everything is geared towards, do you have a significant other or not? And we gotta be the church that comes around and says, you are a part of a family. You belong here. You have a purpose here. We want you. And I think Jesus showed us this because who did he tell us to care for? The widows and the orphans. I want you to bring the lonely into a family. I want you to go get the lonely. I want you to include them. I want you to take them in. That's who my heart is for. Those who feel cut off, those who feel alone. That's my heart. And so I think the question that each of us have to kind of answer is that question that Jesus asked me. Is he really enough for you in all areas of your life? And be honest, it might not be true right now, but do you actually believe that he has everything that you need? Do you believe that he actually has good plans for you, a good gift for you in this season? Let's pray. Lord, I thank you so much. I am so humbled by all that you've done in my life. And you know that I could keep talking for hours about your goodness, about how you delivered me, how you freed me. And I'm so thankful. And so, Lord, for those who are hopeless this morning, would you give them hope? That you are our hope of glory. You are our hope. And that those who are lonely, that they would receive validation, that they would feel seen and known, and that those who feel like they're waiting and they're contending for things, that there is a purpose. Would you show them their purpose for right now? And God, as we hold that question before you, is Jesus enough for you? Yes. Do you really believe that he has everything that you need, and that all the worldly things will fade, and that we will stand before you? What did you do with Jesus on the cross? What did you do with Jesus? And so if that is you, if you're sitting in here and you're like, I haven't done anything with Jesus. I've never even addressed him. Or I'm struggling. Me and Jesus have been in just like, I don't actually believe that he has good intentions for me. I don't think he has good plans for me. I believe he wants to speak hope to you and tell you that he sees you. And that all the years the locusts have eaten would be redeemed. And that there is hope in no other name but Jesus. Singleness will suck no matter what if we don't have Jesus. And so, Lord, I pray that you would give hope and purpose, and that we would say yes to you. Whatever it is, I believe you have good things for me. You have good gifts for me. And I feel like he would say this to you today. He's just getting started. You are not too old. You are not too far gone. It's not too late for you. Jesus will still be the thing that sustains you. And he is still the thing that will fully satisfy you. And so, Lord, I thank you for this morning. I thank you for what you're doing. And would you show us what this means to us? Would you show us what it means to leverage whatever season it is for your glory, for your kingdom, for your purpose? That we would be attentive and ready to be sent to do whatever you would have us to do. And that we would be devoted to you, Jesus, because you are so good to us. You're not just good in general, but you are good to me. You are good to us. And so, Lord, I thank you. I praise you. And I lift you up. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, guys. If you guys stand with us, we're going to close in worship.
Could you all give Sister Emily another round of applause? Thank you so much for sharing that good word. Hallelujah. Hey, if you gotta check out your keiki, please make your way to the back to check out your keiki. Also, there is a prayer tent at the back corner to my right. If you need prayer, please seize the opportunity to get prayed on. In the meantime, God bless you, Hauge Chapel Corner. We're gonna continue this awesome message series next week. Grab a friend and we'll see you then. God bless you.
Hey, Ohana, are you guys coming?
Are you coming?
Hey, Hope Chapel Kona, are you coming? Join us November 6th as we celebrate all that God has done, what He's doing, and He will do. We're going to have food, fellowship, hula, music, bounce houses, because it's an Ohana thing. See you there. Hey, Ohana, are you coming? Will we see you there?